This is Ruth Ann Norton. I am the current chair of the Maryland Lead Poisoning Prevention Commission for the state of Maryland, which is housed at the Maryland Department of the Environment. We're glad to have all of you join us today. It is a little bit of a rainy day, but not an icy day here in Baltimore. So thank you to everybody who did switch on the precaution of the weather to be virtual. I thought we had an extraordinarily good and robust meeting last meeting. And we want to get to introductions. So one of the things that I'm going to ask the department to do with me is in the next couple of weeks, hold an orientation for new commission members and those old commission members that want to just review the purpose, the protocol of the commission, and we need to get that done. And I want to thank Nadia Hutchinson for pinging on that. And I promised gave her my word we would do this. So let's do that for all the smart folks who are joining. The other is we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about structure of what we want to do on the retreat and strategic planning to be able to really provide to the state updated information and advice on lead, which is still a stubborn, chronic, and devastating issue for so many families. But first, Wendy, let's just do a quick call of the commission members and the minutes, and then we will get to it. And so glad to see everyone here today. And not only are we still standing, but I think we have to stand a little taller now. In this country on many aspects, and this is one on environmental justice and children's health protection. So let's get to the roll call and let's get moving.
Okay, so I'm going to just let, when I call your name, you can introduce yourself, but these are the people that I see on as commissioners. We have Barbara Moore.
Hi, I'm Barbara Moore. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner and director of the lead poisoning program from Mount Washington Pediatric Hospital, commission member.
Benita Cooper.
Good morning, Benita Cooper, Maryland Insurance Administration, commission member.
Cliff Mitchell.
Good morning, everybody.
With a haircut.
With a haircut. Yes.
Oh. Where are you from, Cliff? Just to let people know.
Oh, yes, Maryland Department of Health.
Fred Banks. Is he on? No, I don't. He might be running late. Okay. Mangela Paul.
Good morning. Mangela Paul from Office of Child Care, Maryland State Department of Education. Thank you.
And I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I practiced. Michael Ikniowski.
Perfect. Absolutely.
Yay.
Perfect. Of course, in the home country, it's Ishniowski. So, but anyway, I'm Mike Ikniowski. I'm a representative from the Maryland chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm their Environmental Health and Climate Change Committee Chair.
And Nadia Hutchison.
Good morning, everyone. Nadia Hutchinson, lead-free organizer with Young at Sitting Green.
Nicola Tran.
Hi, I'm Nicola Tran. I'm director of the Whole Home Energy and Repair programs at DHCD.
And do we have Susan Kleinhammer?
Good morning, everybody. Susan Kleinhammer, accredited risk assessor, owner of Lead Tech Services. Good morning, everybody, and a commission member.
And
is Alex on?
No. Anna's okay. So Anna's not on. Christina's not on. Fred, Jacob, I don't see on. Mary Washington. Oh, Fred's on. Go ahead, Fred.
Good morning, Fred Banks, program manager for the Lead Poison Prevention Program and commission member.
And Ruth Ann Norton.
Yep. Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, chair of the commission. I want to, by the way, thank Fred. Thank you for information around Maryland that has been helping the city of Detroit as they lift their work and sharing, as you've been so great with other states around the country on best practices. And really a great ambassador for the state of Maryland. Fred, appreciate that. City of Detroit has now established a lead commission task force, and they're trying to look at the Maryland law and all the effectiveness there. So really quite helpful. Do we have Stephanie, there you go. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to introduce the new Land and Materials Director, Rick Kessler. I wanted him to say a few words and have you all to meet him.
Absolutely. And then I don't know if that was on the agenda.
Yeah, it was. That was the first thing on the agenda. So.
Yeah, we might want to put that up. But Rick, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Nice to at least electronically meet some of you. Rick Kessler. I am just closed out my second week at MDE after coming here from EPA, where I spent about 2 years as part of the leadership of the Office of Land and Emergency Management, which oversees cleanup programs and a lot of lead-related work. In fact, very involved in our first updating of our lead and soil guidance since Bill Clinton was president. Actually, yeah, I think it was since the Clinton administration, so 30 years, in 1994. But prior to that, about 35 years on Capitol Hill, working on energy and environment legislation, and very involved with lead pipes and a number of things, and lead abatement more generally. Just glad to be here and listening, and thank you all for doing what you do to protect public health and the environment, in people, and protect them from one of our most toxic elements that people are exposed to on a regular basis. And really glad to hear about Fred's help with Detroit. I was chief of staff to a guy named John Dingell from Michigan, who was chair of House Energy and Commerce for years. So, and very involved with the Flint water crisis. So just glad to hear about the help being provided to Detroit and Michigan. But generally, again, thank you for having me, and thank you for what you do.
Well, Rick, it's an honor and a pleasure, and I think we're going to be picking up one more person soon from EPA to MDE that will be great as well. And I want to pause for a minute, because I think for all that is going on in the United States right now, we wait to see how the EPA will shake out in terms of its structure, in terms of its work ahead. It's heartening that the EPA just recently put out a number of key health and environment indicators. Lead was amongst those, and that was a recent publication coming out. I like to remind folks that in the first administration for Donald Trump, lead remained a high priority at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We're hoping that there can be some runway, if you will, no aviation fuel and lead, right? But some runway for this. But reports today, as published by the Wall Street Journal and CBS News, the Environmental Justice Department at EPA may be closing, and staff there may be receiving notices of administrative leave and a reworking of those programs. I will say we're an organization that receives money under the environmental justice part of the EPA. We've been told to continue to work. We have contracts, but no access to money. So we'll see, not currently, but we'll see how that plays out and how Administrator Zeldin plays out. But it will have a great deal of impact if there are changes in funding with regard to potentially the lead pipe and the $15 billion there, the impacts on child health, and certainly you may have read about the JPEGO impacts on USAID. Currently, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is moving. They've moved contracts this week. Their portals for payment are open. So that has stayed on course. But we have concerns about what it will mean for the lead efforts that many groups around the state of Maryland have gotten environmental justice grants for education, child health grants, and even asthma grants. So I think it's stay tuned. I won't put Rick on the hot seat to try to get his take on it today. Being fresh out of the administration, unless you want to say something, Rick, I'm going to assume you might want to just get settled. But I know it's quite an impact on the employees there. Yeah.
I mean, I'll just leave it at it's completely unprecedented. I hope things settle out. I want to be careful. I just know a lot of my career colleagues are really struggling, more so than a normal transition. So maybe it's probably best to leave it at that. But
yeah, we're working. Yeah, I think we're all working to try to save the programs that are funded by Congress. To
100%.
Keep the norm of what is funded by Congress and keep that in play. And I will say, so many of the programs, especially those around lead, get right to the heart of child poverty, get right to the heart of community issues, not only in Maryland, but places like Tennessee and West Virginia and Iowa and Utah, and many, many places across this country. And lead, I will just say, not to be Pollyannish about it, but just historically, and history does matter, and something has been one of the most bipartisan issues in the federal government over the course of time. Dr. Mitchell. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to agree with that and just say what we have going for us is the public understands lead and understands the threat it poses. And you're right, it has traditionally been a very bipartisan issue. So appreciate those comments.
And a large part of the lead operations at EPA, I understand, Rick, do not sit in the Office of Environmental Justice and sit over in toxics. So it has a greater likelihood of staying as a statutory program. Dr. Mitchell.
So Ruth Ann, I know we've talked in the past about sort of the strategic vision for lead here in the commission, and we've particularly had a conversation recently about that, given sort of where we are as a state in thinking about lead. Mm-hmm. I am not trying to make lemonade out of lemons in this comment. I am simply saying, however, that in terms of at least my understanding of where our departments are, we are not changing any of our priorities in the short run, no matter what happens in DC or anywhere else. It does seem to me that it makes even more urgent in some respects having a thoughtful conversation about what it is that we focus on, which children are most at risk, which communities are most at risk, and whether the strategies that we adopted with a certain understanding of resources are still the strategies that make sense in terms of what are likely to be what is likely to be a significant change in resources over the next, and I would still think about this as a 5-year window, because I think that question, frankly, is going to post-date the end of this administration and move into the next one. But I just offer that as a thought.
Yeah, and we don't know where the country will go 4 years from now in terms of any of this, right? I think we have an obligation on such a devastating toxin, right, to continue to make the case, to continue to look at the sources, the case, and get people to continually understand the impact on grade level reading, the impact on classrooms and graduation rates, the impact on crime, the impact on quality of life. And one of the things just that the EPA did was they actually moved all of the billions of dollars for the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund out. So Climate United and Enterprise through Power Forward, who will be doing housing out of that, those dollars, that equates to about 10 billion of the, at least or more, will need a policy on lead in order to do single and multifamily housing upgrades, retrofits, because we will be disturbing an historic amount of that. It is an opportunity to look at lead pipes while they're doing that. It's an opportunity to build in the network when these things are happening in community, to build in the education. But lead is a linchpin. It is so insidious that usually it has been in so many places we've talked about it. But to your point, Cliff, I think we are going to need to take, whether we opt to take out a commission meeting for the strategy and strategic planning, or we do this in addition. I know we need to do that when we will require and need from the state agencies the data, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's obviously MDE or MDH or DHCD, what money exists that is continuing on lead. I'll be interested to see how the CHIP programs continue. I don't want to talk about them much because maybe if we don't talk about them, they can continue. But we definitely want to map out those dollars. We need to map out the opportunities of alignment. And in fact, I'll get the Climate United people to the meeting to talk about how they intend to spend money in Maryland, and the Power Forward people if we want that. We've got to talk about the education and advocacy. Last month's meeting was so important around this issue of inspectors and the community engagement that is needed to bring those issues to light. MDE is handling them fabulously, but MDE is not staffed enough to be able to cover what community can cover as well. And so there's a lot of support and alignment of things that need to happen. Nadia, I saw you come on. I know your hand isn't up. I didn't know if you wanted to comment on this because I know we've talked offline about the urgent need to do this planning. Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm like really in support, and I think that there's some level of planning that's needed that also centers what community folks on the ground are really going to be struggling with. I think that especially in the nexus of like the housing programs, folks are, I think there's a lot of animosity or like fear if there is like a decrease in renter protection programs, increase in other services. Like there's been the water rate hike, there's been BG&E hikes in Baltimore. So costs are going up among renters. So I think that there is a lot of like fear and hesitancy of like how much can we advocate for our needs, and wanting to make sure that we're centering a lot of these community concerns when we think about strategy and planning.
Oh, that is true. My electric bill doubled last month, and I'm one person, so I'm trying to figure that out. I'm looking at my neighbor, wondering if they're stealing my electric. I'm only kidding. But when did you? This is good, and welcome, Rick. I also want to take a moment, if she is online, since we are welcoming people. Got two other people to welcome to this work. Brianna Adams, who is the new head of the Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Division for the city of Baltimore. Brianna, do you want to say a few words about yourself? And we are thrilled to have you join the team in Baltimore City.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am also equally thrilled to be a part of this work. I see a lot of familiar faces. I have been working in Baltimore City with health disparities and working with the social determinants of the ecosystems for quite some time now. Recently came from the mayor's office working as associate director of victim services. But I'm happy to be in a different space and doing things in regards to lead. So thank you for having me.
Well, please let all of us know what you need as you build a new structure there forward. We know we love Camille Burke, and she's amazing, has really put a path in front of you. But I think everybody here wants to strengthen every county in the state on this issue, but Baltimore leads it, and everything that happens in Baltimore becomes the model. So please let every one of us know what we can do, both from the commission and individual organizations. I also want to take a moment, Wendy, to make sure I introduce Laura Nugent at the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. Laura serves as the new attorney for lead poison children and family advocate attorney, working with property owners and tenants to advance the Maryland lead risk reduction in housing law and the protections and preventative actions, both through housing court and legal education and thinking that forward. Laura, do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself, come online and introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ruth Ann. I'm so sorry that my camera is not working. Rick, I think we had the same start date two Thursdays ago, and I thought that I had resolved the camera issues with my new laptop with IT, but apparently not. But yes, thank you so much for the warm welcome, Ruth Ann, and the commission. I'm very eager to set up shop and start working directly with clients in Baltimore and across the state, you know, from the mountains to the ocean, to make sure that clients and families are getting the representation that they need in rent court, and then also you know, working to promote legal education of Maryland's very stringent and tough lead laws, to make sure that everybody is aware of what they need to do to comply and keep kids and families safe.
Well, besides wearing a cape that she's going to wear every day for families, Laura's also going to work with West Stewart and our team. We're going to try to renew the judicial court education that occurred annually. So we may be coming to some of you as we put that training curriculum back in place so that every district court judge and circuit court judge is up to speed on the law and what they can get from the department, and how we can maximize the notice of tenants' rights and maximize getting owners proactively engaged in a good way. And we'll be certainly wanting to make sure everyone knows not only their rights, but their responsibilities as partners in this. So welcome, Laura. We're thrilled to have the University of Maryland School of Law graduates, and now we have UB and University of Maryland in our shop, and they get along, so it's great. Wendy, do you want to bring up the agenda and let's get the minutes? I know we are a little bit beyond getting time on that, and then let's get to the rest of the work and the commission.
Pulling it up. Share screen. Just let me know when you see it.
So first on the minutes, has everyone had an opportunity to receive and review the minutes? If you're on the commission and you are not receiving those, please let Wendy know. I'm sure you are. She's on top of it. But if there are any comments, emendations to the minutes, please let us know now. Failing that,
move to accept the minutes.
there you go. Need a second?
Also move to accept.
There you go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If you want hands up, is that what you'd like, Wendy? All right. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. One thing I would like to remind MDE, is we do need to be in touch with Adrian Jones to get an appointment from the House of Delegates. Delegate Attar is no longer in the House, and she is now the senator, replacing Jill Carter. Mary Washington, I know, is quite engaged and wants to be very much a part of this. She's in session at the time of these meetings. I've promised to make sure I do updates with her, and she will, I know, want to participate if we have a planning meeting, either through her or her staff. The question will be whether we want to do it after session. But thank you so much. And I did see Secretary Edwards the other day. Wendy, I promised to get my own thing I need to do for renewal.
Okay. Have you heard back from them at all, or you got your application in, right?
I got to put it in and get all that done. So.
Okay, they said they weren't going to do any like appointment stuff until after legislation session, so they're kind of different focus right now.
Yep, I saw her Sunday. We talked about it, so that's
Cliff Mitchell's hands up.
Go, Cliff.
While we're on the subject, just a reminder for all of the commission members, particularly those who are state employees as well, that the Ethics Commission will bother you unceasingly until you complete your ethics report, and they're not always kind about it. So
And
the sooner you do it, the better.
And when is that due annually, Cliff, again?
I believe by April 1st.
Yeah, I think so. I got a notice in the email. Most people should get a notice. But Wendy, if somebody, or if Wes is on here, put up the link for that to make sure. I don't see Wes here.
I thought I saw one earlier. Maybe he hopped off. But if somebody puts it in the chat, I can add it to the minutes.
Oh, he's here. He's just coming under the name of George. His first name. So we can all call.
Oh, there he is. He's muted.
Thanks, George. If you will put up the link to that, we would appreciate it. And we'll go from there. And hopefully you have that. But thank you, Dr. Mitchell, on that. We don't want anybody. It's a pretty stiff fine too, I think, right? And
well, it's not only a fine, but in past cases, people have been removed from the commission for not, or I should say, from commissions.
Yeah.
For not compliant.
And barred from being on them, right? So
Yeah.
I think we've talked about the federal impacts here. As we know them, it is a day-to-day impact. There is work that's done in USAID on lead. There's work that is done in the CDC. One other thing I did want to say here is currently, at least prior to the meeting today, the websites at HUD, CDC, and EPA on lead remain active. I know many of the CDC websites have data has come down. Some of the environmental justice screening tool that has been up for more than a decade, I believe, Rick can correct me if he's still on, has come down, but the lead sites themselves are still up at the federal agencies. But it is, Cliff, I will say to all of our agencies here, it may become increasingly important to anything that we relied on federal data to be on the federal sites. We might want to do our public website reviews, even down to the city level, and see if we, thank you, Paula, and see if we need to update things that may not exist in the next couple of months. So just something to think about here. We had asked DHCD to present today on their funding and their plans for that. And I've known Nicola's on the line with us. They've asked for another month so they can get their feet under them with their new contracts and the legislative session. So we are going to move that. We also made a request for an update based on the conversation last meeting, just to get some more information about the process and any numbers or impacts or supports needed out of the enforcement areas of MDE. They have currently, as I understand it, have respectfully decline that request, and we'll reach out to find out more about that. And so we will have to delay anything on that. I will say to the department that to run a meaningful strategic planning process, we're going to have to know something from that area, and such good work and good people in the area. So we want to make sure we're asking the right questions to get the information. But I think it's critically important to do that. I don't know if anybody from MDE wants to respond to that, just because I don't want to misstate or misrepresent the department in any way. Fred, do you want to make, or Paula, anything on this?
I don't have anything to add on it. You said it perfectly.
Okay. All right. And I think there was a desire that we also get an update on the issue that was in the banner on the risk assessor, or the assessor who was handing out false certificates. So if there is a way to get an update on that case, I think it would be something, given the commission's discussion last time, it'd be really great to know. And also to the department, I know organizations who want to be helpful in that, and making sure that we're doing the right education, and making people aware as we do education on any parties that have been banned. Yeah, so Michael, Dr. Janowski, do you want to say what you put in the chat here as we get into the discussion on strategic planning?
Sure. My voice is a little bit off, so I apologize. But with the war on equity, inclusion, diversity, I do have serious concerns that federal level lead poisoning prevention, treatment, the whole issues around lead, which disproportionately affect the more disadvantaged people in our population, that their sort of blinded look at DIE as something to be scrubbed from every aspect of the federal government may imperil federal level work on lead poisoning and prevention and treatment.
I think there's deep concern on that, deep concern on how we will target communities, meaning data, putting priorities on investments, priorities on a number of things. If we don't really look at equity data across the board, and equity data by race, equity data by economic status, equity data around age of housing, and other aspects of that. And I should have started this meeting to recognize that this is Black History Month, and it remains Black History Month. And we want to lift the amazing people who have led the efforts of why we are here and why this issue came to the forefront of the need of attention. And that includes the 9 African-American mothers in Baltimore who lifted up Parents Against Lead. And it includes so many great leaders like Secretary McElwain and others. Hang on, please. Cliff, can you take this, please?
All right. So thank you. I think that Ruth Ann had to step away for a second, so I will just continue the conversation and obviously acknowledge, along with Ruth Ann, the significance of the month, particularly at this time. All right. So looking at our agenda then, after having done approval and introductions, and obviously EPA is not going to be talking about the release of the 6 indicators of environmental health. And Commission and Rick, I'm assuming like everybody else, you've probably had the experience that basically the federal agencies, just for everybody's awareness, the federal agencies are basically in a communications vacuum with the states on a large number of issues. So in terms of the details of what is happening in the federal agencies, we are as much in the dark, I think, as the general public with respect to some of the activities that are happening. And I can't say more about that except to say I don't have any insight on the status of the work related to the 6 indicators. And if anybody else does, now is the time to say so. So we'll let that one go. The next topic is a legislation update. As you all know, the deadline for the Senate to file bills was Monday. This Friday is the House deadline. I am looking right now at the Maryland General Assembly website, and there are a lot of pages of bills. Many pages of bills. We're up in the 900s, I think, in each chamber, roughly. So there are a lot of bills, and agencies are obviously doing their own bill reviews. Susan, who is, forgive me, but now, Wendy, who is monitoring for us? Because I don't know who the legislation subcommittee is now. Specifically?
Well, usually it's Adam has a lot to add, and Anna Davis, but neither of them are on right now. I don't know that anybody else is necessarily like following closely, or does anybody have any updates that they've been following? No? Okay.
This is Wes from Green Healthy Home.
Okay.
I
Hey,
think
Wes.
the department may want to speak to the main bill that's lead related right now is the fees bill. It's part of the omnibus fees bill that MDE has. That will increase rental property owner fees from $30 per property to $120, but extend the period to an annual registration every 2 years versus annually. And that bill is Senate Bill 250. It's going to be heard on February 11th in the Senate Energy, Education, and Environment Committee. So that's the first bill. Fred or Paul, that may want to speak to that. And that language has also been included in the larger budget reconciliation bills. So the bill language from this fee-specific bill, which includes a lot of other fees, but in particular for this case, the lead-related registration fees. But the whole budget bill, Senate Bill 321 and House Bill 352, which are being heard at the end of February, those large budget bills do include this same language on increasing rental property owner registration fees. So, but the 11th is the first hearing on the MDE bill. So I don't know if Fred or Paul have other comments, but.
So I will defer that for a second. Sure. Nicola?
Yeah, I just, we have a departmental bill that's somewhat related. We are looking to expand the number of agencies and organizations that can help us in providing services across the state. That's for the lead programs as well as for our other rehabilitation programs. And so we're seeking to make an amendment to the special loans programs to allow nonprofits as a subrecipient in addition to local governments.
Thank you for that. And
hey,
what's
Wes.
the bill? What?
Yeah.
Do you know if Ruth Ann has last commission meeting we there was a motion to do a letter of support, I believe, for Senate Bill 250. Did Ruth Ann, do you know, did she get that out? Because the hearing date is 2/11.
Right. I'll follow up with her. Yeah, that would be submitted tomorrow in terms of for the hearing on the Tuesday. Yep.
Thank you for that, Wendy.
Yep.
Thank you for that reminder and the follow-up. Nicola, do you have the bill number? For the environmental?
It's Senate Bill 238 and House Bill 127.
And that is the title of that bill is Department of Housing and Community Development, Maryland Housing Rehabilitation Program, Local Rehabilitation Program Administration.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. I'm going to defer a conversation since neither Adam nor Anna is here, and commission members who are just for the public and for the new members of the commission, as you can imagine, those of us who are agency folks on the commission obviously cannot speak to legislative issues, except in certain very rare circumstances. So as employees of the administration, we obviously are members of the administration. And so I think usually the discussions on these issues are led by non-agency members, except for sort of factual questions related to the bills. And Ruth Ann, Chair Norton, I see you are back. At least I think you are back.
So did we skip to legislative work?
We did. Nobody had any updates on the 6 key indicators. And I polled the group. Nobody had any inside information.
Okay. Well, as you know, the commission is on the record in support of the fee bills. The fee bills have now moved over essentially to the budget hearings. There will be potentially a hearing in the House on that, but it is now in the budget process. And so in the budget hearings, it will be critical for us to be there and supporting that process. Wes may have already gone over that. We're supporting some good work that Nicole is doing to make sure we are aligning and braiding and coordinating dollars correctly in the state. And Nicola, I've got to give you amazing props, how diplomatic you are with lots of different inquiries and lots of work you have to do with legislators and the department. So really grateful for your role there. And
Chair Norton, there was a question related to whether or not a letter had already gone out on Senate Bill 250, which was the subject of, or is the subject of a hearing next week.
yeah, I want to make sure with Wendy that what letterhead it goes on. That was my issue. And so Wendy, we can maybe get that immediately after this meeting. I did make the committee aware in conversation with the chair, but we should get the letter out, and also the letter to the appropriations and budget committees. But I think we normally do it on a different letterhead. If not, I can put it on ours, but we should put it on a neutral letterhead.
Well, we have like our own commission type of letterhead. I had sent that to Kennedy.
Okay.
Well,
then
I don't know if you guys still have it, but I'll send it again.
Send it to Wes and
Okay.
Me, and that'll get out today. Okay.
Yes.
We'll ensure that, and we will circulate it to everyone so everybody can see it and get that out. But thank you for the reminder, Cliff, on that. And if you'll just attach the bill number on that. Are there other legislative updates anyone wants to give? Only giving factual updates. Is there anything impacting lead from MDH that's out?
I don't think any of our bills, either directly or frankly indirectly, would affect lead. I cannot speak to the many, many bills that relate to healthcare financing every year, because all of them have obviously very wide impacts or narrow impacts in some cases, but none that I've specifically seen directly related to lead.
Okay. And Nicola, is there anything from you all? I think only the
Yeah,
amendments to the Charcutean bill, I think, right?
right. So that's not necessarily lead related. The one allowing the nonprofits to do rehabilitation work is more lead related.
Yeah. We're in favor of that. We think there's some really good nonprofits in the state that do good work. So
You think so? You might have inside knowledge.
Rah, go. And it builds community capacity. So I think that is really quite clear. So if are we going to get back to the strategic planning discussion? Because I'm sorry, and I had to take a call from the EPA, so I needed to do that. So I apologize, and thank you, Cliff, for always being there to jump in. But Wendy, where are we on the agenda? Having with me, having stepped out?
Did you mention everything that you wanted to on the federal impacts on lead?
I did at this point. I mean,
Okay.
and what I will work with you, but we should circulate the new EPA document that lists lead as one of the priorities that they should be focusing on impact. It was a great piece that came out. And then U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has also released a piece related to lead, ensuring that actions for all their grants are happening at least the threshold level, if not prevention. So 3.5, that is not something unusual for Maryland, but for the country, that is big. And I'll give you a kind of an interesting example of this. We're seeing a large uptick of activity on lead in the Midwest, and including the state of Wisconsin, who just declared their alignment with the CDC threshold level of 3.5 micrograms per deciliter. What everyone should know is until very recent history, lead poisoning in the state of Wisconsin was defined at 20 micrograms per deciliter. So this is a big jump for that state, even though they were working as a health department and jurisdictions to be lower and be at 10 and try to be at 5. The state definition was 20. And that is an incredible barrier when you're trying to get work done, especially in rural housing that has lots of lead. We know that. We're about to release grants to the state of West Virginia, where this is a big problem in rural communities. And lots of different ways that are getting, will be getting lead cleanup done. So there is movement at the state level to do this. And as I said, I'll ask Wendy to work with us to attach those to recent publications coming out of the federal agencies to know. But let's, I guess I want to get to and make sure that we identify when we're doing this strategic planning day, do it with enough time that we can get the right panels, the right people. So I'd really like to poll the commission here verbally on a couple of things. To do it while session is in play or right after session, but before the summer certainly gets underway. We've got a big asthma summit. Then we roll into activities for Healthy Housing Month, etc. So polling whether late April or early May makes sense for the commission. And I'd love to hear from people that are both in the agencies who may have to produce some factual work and other things, but also the impact of session, and then those of us who are in the private sector. Before I do that, my long-held friend, Victor Powell from HUD. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would like to say good morning, everybody, and everybody that don't knows me. I'm an enforcement analyst in the Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control. Been there 25 years, and when you brought up about West Virginia, I hadn't attended a lot of these meetings lately because I've been working on a MOU task force for enforcement, which include Region 3, 9 cities. Baltimore was one of them, but it wasn't one of the cities that we went to. So we just completed what we call disclosure 1018 and RRP. If everybody don't know what RRP is, inspections or reviews in Wilmington, Delaware, Reading, Pennsylvania, and last of all, Ruth Ann, when you were talking about West Virginia and Charleston, West Virginia. And concerning lead-based paint in West Virginia, Ruth Ann, I would like to work with you on some areas because we went to 2 cities in West Virginia. We went to Charleston and we also went to Huntington. And that was, like I said, an MOU between HUD and the EPA working in these cities. And we found in West Virginia, of course, they have never applied for a HUD grant, but we find when we're talking about lead, and I was working with the housing authority there in Charleston, they have no idea about compliance with the lead rules or anything. It really kind of surprised both of us, the teams we were there, because we did close to 10 site visits with management companies and a lot of property owners. And concerning lead, it was like it was going back in 30 years ago. So I just wanted to bring that comment up.
So Victor, 2 things. One, for the purpose of this Maryland Commission, and thank you for being here and thank you for representing HUD and thank you for the recent grants from HUD to the state. But I wanted to just say, ask the question, why did you skip Baltimore? So that's one question. And secondly, on other states, West Virginia, I'm more than happy to talk offline. As you know, Shelley Capito is the Senate lead, Republican senator from West Virginia on the Energy and Environment committees, and I think has a great interest in education. So really an important bit of education that can be done there. But why did HUD?
Yeah, let me.
Why did you skip Baltimore and then we?
Baltimore is one of the cities on our list. However, when it comes to prioritizing which cities we go to first, I was not. I was not the authority. They selected the cities, between my program director and the program director at EPA. They selected the cities that we're going to go to first, and of course, Baltimore is on the list, but it was not one of the cities that was in the priority. I hope that answered the question.
Yep, it does. We would invite you back to be able to potentially participate and have those individuals at HUD on the lead issues provide a presentation or a quick panel or some data that we may request for this strategic planning session that the Commission wants to do as states take on a greater lead. I want to thank you for your service. It's amazing. And thank you also to Matt Ammon, a Marylander who served as the acting secretary until the new secretary, Coleman,
Matt's a good guy. Yep.
Amen, was approved by the Senate and is now there. But I want to go back to the question, if I can, of first taking temperature on timing. Either if you could raise your hand and help Wendy and I on notes on that, or put in the chat. Are there any periods of time that you would think? I think we need at least 2 months to do good planning to make sure we have a good agenda that's circulated. So that puts us in the April, May timeframe, but I think we should get this done before mid-year so that we can start to enact it, start to think about if there's any impacts on the governor's budget next year and priorities.
Is this only for commissioners or is this, you're opening it up to everybody?
The strategic planning process for the commission typically is for the commission members and then invited panels. Certainly the report from that should be public. I would suggest it be public and hugely transparent, but getting commissioners time to actually weigh in on the goals and objectives here. I saw a hand too, if I could.
Barbara Morse said she's not available for a strategic planning meeting in April.
Not in April. How about early May, Barbara? And Cliff, let me start with you and Nicola, and then I'll go to the good doctor, and we'll go from there because you guys are the people I see on the screen. But let's ask the agencies when knowing that you might be asked for some data or relative programming.
So I was going to say all times are good. We work at the behest of the public. This is part of our mission.
Well, I love that, Cliff.
Well, it's not true, but I thought I would say it anyway.
Oh, it's true.
But no, it's only in the sense that I don't know that I can predict with any certainty exactly what happens after session ends. Typically, everybody takes a collective breath after session ends and sine die occurs. But I think this year it's very difficult to predict what, if anything, we're going to be facing in April and May. So I would frankly just recommend go ahead and picking dates, regardless of any of our speculation at this point. I mean, that would be my personal thought.
Okay. Well, we have heard from Barbara, who's a critical part of that. Michael, do you have a?
I don't have any particular plans for April or May at this point, so I can kind of work around whatever you decide. I don't know if you do doodle polls to see.
Yeah, we can do a doodle poll, but I want to kind of narrow it down as we get into the discussion of what we may need. So I'm thinking maybe that first week in May, and the question is whether we could use the commission meeting time and have part of it as open public meeting time, and then do the rest on strategic planning, or just take a different day on that. But the first whole week in May is the week of the 5th through the 9th. Yes, Cliff.
So I guess my only question, and that is to all of us, is for this to be productive and really useful, it feels like it needs a lot of pre-planning.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, before we get to the point of a date, it would be helpful to know how operationally we are going to plan this. Is it going to be facilitated by somebody outside of the commission? Because I know we don't have resources to do that, at least not apparent to me. But the question about whether it's facilitated, whether there's a planning committee for it, and I would prefer to defer the actual time for this until we figure out sort of how it's being managed. That's my
part of my thinking was mapping out the role so we did get volunteers last meeting for the planning committee, but kind of having from a project management plan, like when things would be due, and being able to issue requests to departments and to counties, or asking if we wanted some best practices that we're seeing around the country to put a panel together. We got to have some dates to ask people. So that was my thought.
Understood.
In that, but my other question I also had is, would we get enough traction to do this on a Saturday, where we could have unfettered time, rather, because I know everybody is busy. And would that be an option, or is that a hard no for people? So we can do a poll around this. I think it might work, but I am looking for us to be able to we did a strategic planning session. I don't know, Susan Kleinhammer, I know, was there, and others, Cliff, you were there. I don't know that we had a great plan, but I don't know that we made it operational. So some of it, I think Paula did a great job of putting into place what could be done. But I want to make it so that we can be operational on these things, whether it's the advocacy community, or it's the nonprofit community, or agencies that we're asking of this. And there are agencies I'd love to bring into the discussion for portions of the day, including Baltimore City, who has a housing choice voucher program for lead poisoned children, and whether they, see how they we might align that a bit more. They've continued that good program, and whether that makes sense, to do more alignment there. But I want to make sure we bring in best practices. I will tell you, I sit on the task force in Detroit, and they are doing Saturday meetings, but go ahead.
So I guess one question is, again, I don't want to throw the timing question off the rails, but I just want to be very clear, and I think we really need to think as a commission about what are the most important questions that we need to answer. I have a list of questions that I think are important, but I know that the rest of the commission will equally have questions. I have questions related to, at this moment in Maryland, who are the children who are at greatest risk from lead?
Right.
Who are and how many of them do we know, and how many of them do we not know? I'm really interested in knowing at this moment in time whether or not the housing interventions are reaching the kids that are the most at risk, or are we seeing a divergence between the kids at risk and the housing interventions?
So can I pause there for a minute? This was so what I was hoping, and I'll say this to DHCD and to the city and others, I was hoping to be able to get that coming to the commission, right? Where is the plan to spend money? What's the data against that? And maybe this is a core part of the strategy session, but I would like to get this commission that we have a dashboard that's running and mapping that's running for almost at least every other, or at least quarterly updates on where's our high priority and where's the money going. I'm 100% with you on that. And when the technology exists for us to do it, it's whether the state can lead that is the question, or whether that has to be done outside of the state to pull data sets and do it. So I don't know, Cliff, if you have a thought on that, but that's
Nicola
there's more that's going to get done
is
that
about
way.
to speak, and that's only because I see her. So I'm gonna.
Well, let me just say, I just had a big meeting with one of the largest philanthropies in the country, and this is what they want to see: is the data around where's the problem, where's the money being applied, and where are your gaps. And we've got to use a big part of technology to do that. Nicola, do you want to weigh in on Cliff's question? I mean, Cliff, don't stop on your questions. And if you also send them by email, we will share them with the work group that we're pulling together.
I didn't have anything specific to add. I can check with our research and data division, though, to see what they might already be doing, what they might already have, and if there's any capacity to pull something together, or whether that's outside of their capacity.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at this in buckets of how we're going, how we can break down the day, right, around data, dollars, outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Enforcement, education. There's one of our work group members right there.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think that it might be helpful to do like a baseline assessment of everyone in the commission, whether it's like a pre-survey early on in the planning stage to gather like what big questions, and maybe if there's reoccurring themes on some of these questions, and then we can kind of put together panels and presentations based off of which reoccurring themes that we're seeing. And maybe in that, it would also be good to have the like finalization of the date.
Great. So I'm going to ask maybe you and Dr. Mitchell to help put that pre-survey together. Anybody else want to speak up, because you'll get volunteered too. But Fred was about to talk, so. Would MDE like to participate in that pre-planning, and would anyone else on that survey that I'd like to commit to get out within the next 2 weeks? Okay. Any volunteers on the survey side? Fred, you saying yes, you'll help? Great. Okay. So what we will do is send the survey out in two parts. The first and most important part is around the key bucket areas of questions of what we, both questions to be asked and outcomes that we would like to achieve. There'll also be in there a doodle poll on dates and format. I will say that if it is allowed to do, GHHI will provide the food, and we will be happy to fund the facilitator that we will make sure is a group chosen facilitator for the day, because I think it'll be good to have an independent facilitator to allow us to free up and someone helping us drive toward answers, if that works for everyone. Yes, sir.
The other thing, I think it might be helpful to help bound this discussion a little bit, and that is specifically with respect to what is going to happen to the federal budget and the federal government, because I think we need to be thoughtful, either by doing sort of min-max projections about what's the worst case scenario and the best case scenario, or just say this is an internal Maryland question, regardless of what happens at the federal level. What is it that we need to do? And those are two very different approaches to this discussion. But I think it's important to think about how we treat the external environment.
Yeah. Hey, Wendy, sorry, Cliff, I just noted that people outside of MDE have put on AI reading notes, and I know in other state meetings I've been in, that's not allowed. So I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Do you see it in the meeting?
I don't actually see it.
Says read AI meeting notes at 9:31. Says I don't want to call Chevelle out, but it says Chevelle added read AI meeting notes.
I already booted out too. So
okay, I want to stay within the bounds of what we have to do, and just want to be clear on that. And Chevelle, if you're on the call and you can hear us, we will make sure you get all notes from Wendy for that, and appreciate that very much. And I love Chevelle, so not trying to call her out. Just want to be fair to what we tell people. Cliff, I think you're right. I think no one knows about the federal government, right? And I think we have to look at how do we advance this issue without federal support? And, and hopeful that the federal support will remain that's under contract, and hope that we do a good job of making the case that it remains, right? And there are new programs also evolving. As I think I raised in the past, the Enough program, the governor did an amazing job to raise $100 million to match the state's $20 million. And lead is part of the criteria they put out or he had laid out as something he hopes will be in those programs that were funded. And there's other things that are happening in the state. The Pimlico redevelopment is doing a lot of housing and home repair around there. So we want to know about those things, and how do we build an effective a way to work at a minimum, hoping for the maximum, right? And is there a role for larger philanthropy at all? And we need to, look at what we are thinking about there. Do you want to keep on your questions, or do others want to weigh in here? Some thoughts? Barbara, can I ask you, what would you like to see come out of this? And you are treating kids every day. And then if there are non-members of the commission who would like to have suggestions, I think we can open up for that.
I guess in addition to knowing what services are really out there and how we've utilized any money that's gone through to them, clarifying what the workflow is as far as making a referral and what timelines are, and expecting responses back, and what happens if your home is found to have lead in it, but they have a previous lead certificate saying that it was fine. things like that that really impact the families.
I think this idea of sort of the universal adoption of how quickly people get into action and what we are pushing as best practice along that has been one that we do need to get to. And, you know, how do we build a better vigilance in communities around exactly what you're getting to, which we've seen far too often in 22 to 24, where houses had certificates and yet kids are getting poisoned in them, and we go back and reassess them and they're not good. And where do we strengthen that system should definitely be part of the education, the data, the enforcement, right, on that. I think we've got to also strengthen the supports for relocation and supports on, as I said, the housing choice voucher side. Getting to the permanent answer. We don't have those resources across the state. So if you're a kid in Cambridge, you're getting treated a lot differently about lead than a kid in Baltimore, for sure. Others, thoughts here? Harry? Do you want to introduce yourself? And
oh, yes. This is, I'm Carrie Johnson, and I have moved to Baltimore just about 2 years ago to set up a business. I'm in progress setting up a business. I moved here to join the efforts to actually close out the Baltimore City lead paint issues. And I found my way to this committee to be able to attend these through Miss Catherine Taylor from DHCD. And part of the reason I'm joining here is because coming from the outside, I know with my nonprofit or it may be a for-profit, either way, I've been asked to get the data to actually put a scope document together. So that's why I'm here to listen to what kind of information is available at the state level. And then I'm very thankful. I just had a meeting with Commissioner Kennedy from DHCD a couple of weeks ago, and she's going to go back to her data team, and we're trying to figure out what the actual number of housing is here in Baltimore. So that's why I'm here. This is an issue very dear to me. And I grew up in Montgomery County and did K through college there. And then I left the state of Maryland, and now I'm back. This is why I'm here. So in terms of, for my thoughts on the strategic planning, I just wanted to encourage everybody on the commission to think strategically and tactically and without fear. I just want to encourage that. So I agree with Dr. Mitchell to, put boundaries on either federal or state funding, but if you could just leave the money out of the equation, period, and think about what it is that you're trying to do, right? And then tactically is think about what are the ways that you could do it. And then that becomes the measuring stick, right? And that's the information that I think would be on the part of the dashboard as well. And I'm bringing that up because that's also, I'm going around and pitch to different people about my idea here, and they're like, what is the data? This is what people want, how you're going to scale it, this, that, and the other. So it's really critical. And then I had a third point too, is that, so to plan without fear, think strategically versus tactically. And then also for that event, I encourage you, as you say, Ruth, to do it on a separate day. Also have a third party to lead you, but dedicated time. So really to focus on it. And also encourage everyone to just talk out loud. You know what I mean? Whatever top of mind. What is it that drives you to be here and to work on the subject? To include that in your time together.
yeah, I want to just echo, if I can, Carrie, it's nice to see you again. The lack of data transparency for communities, we cannot get communities into solutions if we don't have up-to-date data. 2-year-old, 3-year-old data isn't empowering. The ability to get data out, and we should have data at the top of these meetings. And I've been really thinking about, like, why don't we start with a dashboard of at least where we are, what we know, and being able to think, more broadly, because there's more than just paint, although paint still is a massive driver here. But something you said I want to just encourage as we get the work group meeting on this is, what would our strategic plan look like if we didn't think about money for a minute and stack the need, and then be able to then look at the money and say, where can we put it now? Where can we put it as we continue to build? If we get this kind of reignited and get pretty smart on it, we are way ahead of many parts of the country on being able to close this gap so much more. But I keep having this constant worry that the one people that do have money out of the EPA is this greenhouse gas money. It's going to be the biggest mover of lead paint, lead dust, lead chips, and everything else. And we need to prepare for it because it's coming very, very soon. But Carrie, thank you for that. And I would love it if you would be gracious enough to send your thoughts in an email to me and to Wendy, and share that so we can incorporate that. Nadia.
Yes, thank you. Ruth Ann, on the piece about the greenhouse gas reduction fund money and the electrification, which I'm imagining is what will be shaking up a lot of the lead in homes, has there been any federal guidance given to the greenhouse gas reduction fund, like green banks that are distributing this funds, to organizations on how they should best be thinking about lead? Or is that really up to the organizations themselves on guidance?
Basically, they have to follow the regulations and laws that exist now on disturbance of lead-based paint. As federal dollars are there, but EPA is not HUD, so HUD is much more restrictive on those levels. But they do have to follow any state standards or laws that exist. So in Maryland, that would come into play. But it is a good question. I will ask of Climate United and the Power Forward Coalition. Coalition for Green Capital will also be doing lots of work, but not in residential. They're going to mainly institutional buildings and non-residential, which do also matter. But I'll ask that question too as we think about that. We should maintain that. Do we have other thoughts or things that would be beneficial on outcomes for folks?
Angela just added in the comment. She says our strategic plan will align with the governor's and state health departments, children's health goals and initiatives, and how the existing services / organizations impact the environmental exposures and testing to the children for early identification and helping the families and communities. What are the gaps and Commission's 3 to 5 year plan to address these gaps?
That's so well laid out, and thank you, Angela. We will use that as a guide. We will certainly be asking Dr. Mitchell and his team to help us lay that up here. But that's an extraordinarily good guide. And Cliff, you're good at getting people to jump over to the Department of Health. So watch out if MSDE, you might be bringing Angela over. But you're not doing that anymore. Okay, got it. Angela, we love you. Thank you for that.
I want to reassure MSDE, if they're listening, that I am not poaching. Let the record show.
All right, I'm not going to get into this. It's all good.
Thank you, Wendy, for protecting my reputation.
There you go.
As little as that is these days.
There. Okay. What else do we? Anyone else want to weigh in on this? So what we will commit to do is get the survey. We will share that for sure. And if there are others, please email. I will put my email here and Wendy's email. Michael, Dr. Ichanowski.
Yes, one other thing I had a thought about would be including disaster preparedness as part of lead poisoning prevention. You know, the wildfires in California, the floods from the hurricanes this past summer. You have damage to paint, you know, lead paint containing walls that either get flooded and damaged or burned and damaged, and lead that's there can get released into the environment through the process of the disaster and also the process of the cleanup. So it's something that we all have to take a look at. We're probably a little more vulnerable to floods than fires from a hurricane that happens to hit us. Though Soldiers Delight had a wildfire not too many years ago that fortunately was contained. So, you know, things burn depending on whether we're in a drought state or not. So I think it's something that we have to keep in the back of our minds too, in terms of removing lead from the environment, is the effect of a disaster causing a huge dump of lead into the environment wherever it may still be present in housing.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Extreme heat, extreme cold, water, all of these things degrade painted surfaces. We also need to look at the role of what is or is not happening on lead service lines in the state. The other area that Wendy, I want to make sure that we do cover is rural communities. Much of the older big housing from Garrett County all the way down to Crisfield and other places in the state have high levels of lead in housing that never gets addressed in communities that are highly disadvantaged. And how are we, you know, looking to spread dollars, money, or incentives on cleanup for these places as well. So I think that is critically important. We'll look to see that. I know we've, you know, at MDE, you've got Shanika, who's also worked in programs in Philadelphia as well, and bringing in perspectives from other programs around, as I said, around the country will be helpful to see, you know, when you're good and you lead for so long, it doesn't mean you're doing everything as well as everybody else. And we ought to look at anything that might be an interesting way of getting people engaged and involved in the issue, and share those practices. You know, if we are able to do it, I might ask our team and others who may want to participate to do some level of a community survey prior to the strategic planning session, to say, what would the community like to see us be doing in that meeting? And I think we've got enough volunteers through the Hopkins and Morgan and great organizations like Young, Gifted, and Green and Maryland Climate Corps that maybe we might be able to do something around that. And the last is, I don't know if it would be worthwhile, Cliff, should we survey these nurses that we have around the state who are considered to be the lead nurses in every county about what would be helpful to them?
Well, I would think if you are going to do that, that it would also be appropriate to survey the local health officers who have a perspective on what the impact of lead is in their community, in addition to the case management nurses and staff.
I am thinking, I know we want to get this done and we want to do it, but I think we could probably get a couple of source students out of the source program to help us construct some of these surveys as well to these agencies, and help us do data gathering or information gathering as part of this. And they do a number of 9-week and 12-week stints. So maybe we could get some folks out of both the Morgan School of Community Health, University of Maryland, and certainly out of Hopkins Source. So I'll look into that too pretty quickly.
Barbara Moore had a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
Barbara said that we can also survey our patients' families if you find it helpful.
1000%. They're the hardest hit kids in the state. So 1000%.
So having done a lot of surveys over the years, my only caution would be the temptation for students is always to add the 9 millionth question to the survey and answer every question. So we are going to have to temper the survey with between our desire to have complete information and our desire to have anybody at all respond to it. Brevity is the soul of wit.
That's great. I agree, and we will look at the questions and have the appropriate guardrails around that.
No disrespect include Nadia.
I'm not disrespected at all. I do agree that you can sometimes get a 40 question survey.
Did you send Cliff a 40 question survey, Nadia?
No, I didn't. But when I was a student at Hopkins, I probably put together a few 40 question surveys.
I would not. Yeah. Guilty. I've been guilty myself.
But I did want to just add that if we're doing surveys to community members and to like patients in clinics and nurses, I do wonder if it would maybe then be smart to push back the strategy session a little bit longer to give folks time to actually engage in the survey. I imagine with legislative session, like if we're trying to survey folks that might be involved in legislative session, like advocates who are very busy, it might be a little bit challenging to get a response by time we would actually have things in May, but interested in folks' thoughts on that.
So I will just add to that if this involves students at all, then it will undoubtedly have to be reviewed by their academic institution's IRB, the Institutional Review Board.
Depends on the question, but yes, that's right.
No, it will have to be reviewed. It will likely be found to be exempt, but it will need to be reviewed.
Okay.
And if it involves the agencies in any official capacity, at least in our institution, it would likely have to be reviewed at all as well, which is not a bad thing, and it won't take a huge amount of time. But just agreeing with Nadia that here's where I'm pushing back a little bit.
Okay.
Which is, if we want to be life and limber, there is going to be a tension with trying to get every single person in the state to commit a response to us. I think we have to be life and limber about who we are asking what question to. And I absolutely agree we need to think about all of these parties. I don't think we have to survey necessarily all of these parties in terms of equal priority. There are some that have easier ways of getting us information in addition to surveys than others. And so I just think we need to be a little bit thoughtful about if we want the strategic plan to happen this year, then we don't think about a survey that asks everybody everything. We think about the 10 most important questions and the 5 most important groups that we want to hear from. I pulled those numbers out of the air, but I think you get my point.
I think we can work a little bit. I mean, I think we can have a risk of overthinking and do too much, right? But we need to get this done by mid-year, that we make sure this gets done. So we have to work within those parameters. Okay, I think we've got a good base on which to start, and we need to start on what we have in front of us here on this. I also, in mindfulness of time, Wendy, I know we want to run through. If you have other comments, questions, etc., please email them. I'm going to go back to the notes from the last meeting. We're going to pull on anybody who volunteered, plus the folks who volunteered on the survey. Please, let's do our hot topics and current events as they may exist here, and let's go there. And I do want to just say we may also want to add Young, Gifted, and Green to this as we move forward in or other non-government organizations at some point. Yep. Okay. But we'll prepare them for the next time. Let's go MDE, please.
Good morning. We got a few things going on. Well, we are meeting with Dr. Mitchell's team tomorrow to coordinate a huge outreach effort in Prince George's County. We also have, as you're aware, have some big cases we're working on. We have some inspectors that we're going after, so stay tuned for some of those. Outside of that, we're just trying to stay dry and stay busy. We are, one last thing, we are doing a training for the local health departments, or sort of an overview of the HELPS software on February 25th. So hopefully the goal is to get the local health departments using one system to communicate back and forth. So we're looking forward to that.
Terrific. Thank you so much, MDH.
What Fred said.
Okay. AAP, sorry, my apologies.
No worries. Don't have anything new to report. Wondering if a survey of pediatricians would be helpful in terms of a needs assessment for what they would find helpful in dealing with lead. Again, I don't know how many surveys you want to conduct, but if that information would be of some help, that's something that MDAAP could possibly do for its membership.
So you broke up for me a little bit.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm just saying that if it would be useful, MDAAP could potentially do a survey of their members across the state for what their needs for treating, screening for lead poisoning might be.
I'd love us to talk about that, and maybe around also just engagement education on the preventive side. So Michael, we're going to take you up on that. I think it would be an informative point and part of this, and I appreciate the offer on that. So Wendy, can we put that over to the committee work too, and work with Dr. I, so we don't screw it up there, to get that done.
Dr. Mike is okay.
There you go. MSDE, we heard from Angela earlier. Angela, do you have other things to
we met with MDE water testing program to provide clarification for the preschools and nursery school programs that would qualify for free water testing outlets. So we are working with them for providing the clarification.
Do you have anything written up on that?
Not yet. We are working on the document that will be reviewed by our Office of Attorney General and to be submitted to MDE. And when it's available, I'll be happy to share with you.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. And maybe, hopefully by maybe next meeting, but if not, thank you for doing that. Benita.
No, nothing to report. Thank you.
Benita, do you get jokes about your department being MIA?
No.
Maybe I need more coffee this morning. Nicola, do you have anything else to add from earlier?
So our hot topics for the last 2 weeks have been trying to sort out, obviously, what the federal impact would be on our existing programs, and then B, any of all of the future awards that we won last year, and if those are still going to come down this year. So we've been just doing a lot of trying to figure out what's what. As of right now, all the programs are running as they have been. and we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen with the new awards.
I will, we can talk offline, but we won an older adults award from Memphis, and it's only announced a few weeks ago, and it is already under contract. Same for our work up in Lancaster with the Healthy Homes production. So happy to talk to you offline about that, but they've really moved very quickly out of the Office of Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes to the signed 1044s. Baltimore, Nicole and Catherine. Nicole is our commissioner.
I do not have any updates at this time and may have some by next meeting, but I don't have any for today.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your continued amazingly good work. Brianna, this is your first meeting, so don't want to put you on the spot, but anything else you'd like to add?
I do have an update that the Baltimore City Health Department will be working with St. Vincent de Paul His Start to test children and provide education to the families and parents.
Is that part of a special initiative or what?
Yes.
Is that part of the CDC initiative, or do you know?
I'm not sure if it's a part of the CDC initiative, but I can provide more feedback on that.
That would be great, and they are a wonderful program. The CDC lead initiative did meet this week, and I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that for future meetings, because I know they were looking to make sure you're in that. Young Gifted Green, anything to update about work with actions?
No updates at this time. We've taken a little bit of a break on door knocking to weather through the cold, but hoping to start back up in late February.
It looks sunny and warm out there. Okay. Wes, are you on the line, or Shadia with any updates?
Hi, everybody. So at GHHI, we are getting ready to do our property owner trainings with Baltimore Regional Housing Partnership in April. I believe our date is April 9th. So really excited about that, talking about lead laws. And then we're doing a community-based kind of outreach event to homeowners with Baltimore Regional Housing Partnership in September. So that is in the planning stages. And just going to also shout out Asthma Summit that is happening on May 13th at Morgan State University. Thank you, Cliff, and the whole team at MDH and GHHI for helping planning that. But yeah, that's what's happening. Thank you.
And more to come on the outreach around the legal services, and we are adding a person to our outreach staff that we will be happy, hopefully, to announce at next meeting. And if you want to work for somebody fabulous, man, work for Shadia. She's got an amazing amount of energy and vision, and all good. There you go. Any other commissioner updates? My only other commissioner update is that my dog turned 13 on Saturday. Dexter, the data dog, so he's been around, a lot of people know him, so just giving him a little shout. Public comments, and we really appreciate, Carrie, your input earlier. Any other things that we should know out of that initiative, or other members of the public? Okay, next meeting, March 6th. We hope to have some really concrete information around the strategy planning. And we will look to bring in the agencies who didn't report at this meeting. And we look forward to getting a taste of where the dollars might be going. I'm also going to talk to the Enough grantees to see if there is lead in that. And we will include in this an update on the Pimlico area awards that will also help to address lead, in addition to some other work that's being done in the city. Wendy, I think with that, a motion to close the meeting.
I just wanted to say before we close, thank you all for not coming in person. I know it was a last minute change, but just as a reminder for next month, we are going to be meeting on the 6th floor in the Patuxent room. This is a change from where we had initially been meeting. So please, if you are coming in person, please make sure to notify me via email. And also, you will need to be escorted up to the 6th floor. So if you are coming in person, please come early so we can get everybody seated and start on time.
Let's get everybody there. It'd be awesome. Be great. Alrighty. So,
Motion to adjourn?
thank you, Cliff. Get a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will see you. Nicole, I think that's a voting hand, right? Not a comment hand. And
Correct.
okay, thank you all.
Not a debatable motion.
Not a debatable motion. We are adjourned and we look forward to moving forward. Thank you for everybody who participated in that. And please, all the good remarks that were made. I know Wendy's doing her best to record those and get those in notes, but please, I encourage follow-up emails. I want to thank Commissioner Hutchinson for doing that in the interim, keeping us focused. All right, everybody.